So Jenn, your session was called Stop Being an Owl, Start Being a Leader. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the takeaways from your session?
Sure. So the first thing is, what do owls say? Owls say, who let the dogs out? Who did this? Who did that? Who? And so the main point of it is, instead of being that owl that keeps looking backward and saying, who dropped the ball? Whose fault is that? It's about looking forward. Being a leader, rephrasing those questions into, who can I work with to prevent this from happening, or how can I help? And then within the session, we went through and workshopped a few common project problems and some solutions, some ways that even if you aren't the project manager, you can still be a leader.
Yeah, I mean, one of the many things I loved about your session, Jenn, was you tackled some of the really tricky questions, like imposed deadlines and like stakeholders not being available. I mean, you cover much more than that, but I wonder, like, if someone's watching this and they've got a deadline that's unrealistic, or stakeholders who are just absent, they're like AWOL, any tips?
Well, attend a session like this and learn from the audience, like I did.
Definitely.
No, I think looking at those things, so stakeholders not being available, it comes down to respecting their time, helping them see the value that they're providing, the importance of them being able to make some time. Maybe it's working with their leader. If all else fails, it might be reviewing the documentation and then validating it with your stakeholders so that you're using less of their time.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of other tips, and that's a whole other session on how to respect your stakeholders and respect their time. If you respect them, they'll respect you.
Yeah. And any tips on deadlines where, when someone gives you like an arbitrary and completely unachievable deadline, like always happens?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, when I first got into IT, I was on a team where we had quarterly releases, and this is like 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. So it was almost agile in a sense back then, but everything was, here's the deadline, let's work backwards. At what point do we have to have testing finished? At what point do we have to have this finished, that finished? And quite often it comes down to, what do we have to pull out of the scope? Mm-hmm. So that's usually where I start, because the BA has that control over the requirements, or a little bit of influence over the requirements. So it's really prioritizing and recognizing what can be pulled out if necessary, working with your sponsor and your stakeholders to get that buy-in, maybe even reducing the scope of a specific requirement so that you can meet that timeline.
Definitely. Well, fantastic. Thanks, Jenn, for your time. One final question to put you on the spot. Sure. Do you think about any key themes, like sessions you've attended at the conference generally? Are you seeing any key themes, or what kind of takeaways from other sessions have you taken away? I've got to be honest, I landed here yesterday afternoon, so I've only been to one other session, and that was on some of the key lean agile type processes or tips. So I found that was interesting, because it does kind of go along with that whole reducing the scope of your requirements in some way. We want to lean everything down. And I think for me, that's kind of the main message that I'm seeing overall in general in the world is leaning things down. Leaning things down so they're as some people might say, as nimble as possible. Exactly. So, excellent. Well, Jenn, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.